Today's guest is horror writer and script writer Dwan L. Hearn. That's right, my co-host, The Moon. Hey there, aspiring authors. It's another episode of Sako and the Moon by two self-published horror authors walking the path of horror craft and marketing. I myself am dark artist and designer Sako Toomey, but I also write horror under the name Cass Voight. I do a bunch of other things, but we'll just mention that I'm published 4 times over. That's 3 standalones and an anthology. And I'm working on a couple of books and a serial. I've been working on my craft for decades, and now I'd like to share my skills with you guys. But we're not here to talk about me.
I mean, I guess I can do my own introduction for my own interview, but yeah.
No, that's I can take over for that. That's right. Today my guest is The Moon. Dwan L. Hearn, known as The Moon, is a Louisville-based writer, screenwriter, podcaster, and filmmaker with a passion for horror and speculative fiction. He authored the Copper Wheat Collection and wrote award-nominated screenplays like The Screenshots and Companion. Hearn co-hosts Sako and the Moon, ding, 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 and leads the Moon Equals Wrestling podcast, exploring indie publishing, storytelling, and wrestling. Active in the festival circuit, well, he's kind of on hiatus, and conventions like Imaginarium. He brings a unique voice to discussions of horror, identity, and genre blending. His work bridges mediums with bold, personal style that invites readers and viewers into dark, thought-provoking spaces.
You know, anytime anyone does an interview with me and does my introduction, y'all make me sound so much cooler than I am. That is the job of an introduction, but you guys make me seem like so much more cooler than I am.
You are exactly that cool. Just so you know.
I'm just a guy with a microphone and a pen and a camera, some lights, and lots of kids and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have a slew of questions I'd like to ask you.
I have a slew of answers.
Cool. I'd like to talk about your craft and your process first.
Okay.
What's your screenwriting origin story? What drew you to the medium?
I like film, and we being my friend Jason and I, Jason William Allen, we just decided we want to do movies. He's like, hey, you're a writer, and I have some ideas, but I can't write a script for nothing. So if I give you the ideas, can you build something from them and go? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure I can figure it out. So read a couple of books and gave it a try. And my first attempt at screenwriting really sucked. I might revisit that one. I don't know if I will or not. But then we finally got Howard Hills Entertainment to, kind of founded. We realized that of the 3 people who was primarily of Howard Hills at the time, 2 had worked together separately, but we hadn't all 3 worked together. This is when we had the 4th person of Stephanie Lanham, so the others being Jason William Allen and John Mattingly. And we needed to film something to see how well we did when we filmed something. That's when I wrote Screenshots. I wrote it. It's about 14, 15 pages, just something really, really short. We filmed it in a weekend. And the screenplay won an award.
Yay!
It's right here.
Show us your award. Yeah, that's so
Now
smexy.
it's a runner-up award, so I'm very cautious about. I'm leery about mentioning it because I have friends in the space where they have won the gold essentially. But
Mm-hmm.
I keep reminding like, hey, did you get an award? I'm like, technically I did. They're like, well, then you're an award-winning screenwriter. Suck it up. And I'm
Suck
like,
it
you know
up.
what? No one gets mad at the guy who wins bronze at the Olympics. He's still an Olympic medalist, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I guess I can rest with that. That's cool.
Very cool. What does your typical process look like? Do you outline heavily, or are you a discovery writer, or?
Kind of both. Kind of both. The planter, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an idea of like usually if I have like a random idea, I'll write that down and I'll write down, I guess, like the scene that I'm envisioning. And then it kind of depends on where that scene fits. So let's say that scene is somewhere in the middle, right? Then I'm thinking about, all right, now how do these characters get to this point? And I
Mm-hmm.
write out some notes. And I'm like, okay, cool. What do they do after this? And what's the resolution? And I write some notes out after that. And I kind
Oh,
of
so
go from
you write from the middle.
it depends on what the idea is. Sometimes the
Ah.
idea might be an opening, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, all right, cool. But if I think about it as an opening, I have to ask myself, is this truly the opening? So it's really just kind of when I have the idea, I like flesh out the idea itself. And then once I flesh out the idea, it's like, okay, now where does this fit in the piece? And then, all right, is this at the beginning? So what does this lead to? If it's not at the beginning, it's like, well, what led to this? And in screenwriting, because same with filmmaking, if this is the beginning, but something happens before it, do I reveal it by writing stuff ahead of it, or do I reveal it in like a flashback or montage? Is that the thing we're trying to discover? So I'm just asking myself, how will this movie play out? And I write it from there.
Ooh. Huh.
Sometimes my stories work the same way.
So, um, that I gotta pick another question. What's one rule that you love to break?
Happy endings.
Ooh.
I don't like happy endings.
Yeah, that's a horror trope that we like.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The victory of the final girl is heroic. There's a lot that goes into the victory of the final girl, regardless of what she's overcoming. But sometimes the bad guy has to win, and I think if you keep that consistent in your work, then people still approach your work with question, and they aren't like, oh well, here's the main character, how are they going to survive? I rather someone pick up my work is like, ooh, do they survive? This is treacherous. Oh, how are they going to get out of it? And they're like, ooh, they don't. Okay, that's how.
That's how. Yeah. Right on. When do you know or how do you know when a script is done enough to stop like revising?
When the quality of the work starts going the other way. I think there's a point where screenwriters and writers have to be really honest with themselves. And if you're like, oh, there's an unanswered question, let's flesh that out, and you move forward. Okay, it's gotten a little bit better. Or you start to recognize that two characters sound too much alike, or like, oh, this is more dichotomy between things. Now it sounds better. Now you're just adding things to where a secondary character or a tertiary character is taking up too much of a scene for no reason. Then you're like, ooh, that's not better. This is just taking up an extra page. Now I'm going the other way. And when you realize that you're now going the other way, you're like, hey, This is no longer improving, because that's what revising and editing ultimately is for. Like, we don't typically think of it this way, but the point of revising a rough draft is to make the story better, either in how the story progresses or how the story is perceived, by cleaning up the typos or cleaning up the language or something like that. And if you're not improving, you're just a detriment to your work. And why would you want to be a detriment to your work? So at some point we have to be honest with ourselves. It's like, okay, I'm no longer adding to this. We need to put it down.
Oh, yeah. Like and also the difference between developmental edits,
Mm-hmm.
like you were mentioning, adding an extra page or taking away an extra page,
Mm-hmm.
Versus copy editing, like language and
the right there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We've talked about editing in past episodes, but I think we talked about it specifically in the first season, question
Possibly.
mark.
Cool. I feel like that was so long ago.
There's a card in the corner when I go back to edit this. Let's talk about storytelling and voice.
Okay.
What themes or ideas do you find yourself returning to in your work?
Reviewing the negative sides of life. This doesn't necessarily mean anything's bad, but it's not anything particularly good. Even in my non-horror work, you're still dealing with people in conflict. And I guess that's mostly because there's always conflict. I feel like life is stagnant without it. But as we know, like, not all conflicts are life-threatening, and I think that's the difference. Like, horror kind of thrives on life-threatening conflict. Sometimes you're just dealing with family life, a single parent dealing with the child rejection of the other parent. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a single mom and the dad refuses to believe the son is his. I watch a lot of Maury. Or if you have, beef at work with your boss, or if your friend is hiding a secret from you because she was sworn to secrecy. These are just simple conflicts, but they are indeed still conflicts. And I think it's just recognizing the honesty of conflict instead of trying to sugarcoat everything. Yeah, I think it works.
Right on. How do you approach writing dialogue that feels both natural and purposeful?
I talk.
Do you talk to yourself? Like, is that?
I talk to myself. One of the things that I think people ignore is that, like, when it comes to dialogue, we write dialogue every day. Comment sections is just dialogue between different people. So if you read comment sections, you've been reading dialogue. When you text your mom, when you text your wife, when you text your kids, that's all dialogue. And the difference is the way you talk to your mom versus the way you talk to your spouse versus the way you talk to your kid. You do it in your head all the time. Dialogue should be one of the easiest things that we do. I think most writers get hung up on dialogue. They do so because they're trying to imitate probably a voice they're not familiar with, or not a voice that they interact with often. So I just have to have a really eclectic group of people around me. So, Black voices, white voices, male voices, female voices, non-binary voices, older voices, younger voices, all these voices are around me regularly and I interact with them. So I just think back to a conversation I may have had with this person. What would I expect them to say back to me? If I was talking to this person, what would I expect them to say back to me? What would be normal for me to hear? And then you have to take in consideration the situation, because your spouse might say something kind and loving to you on a typical Tuesday. But if your spouse is stressed or in duress because there's something happening, she's going to talk to you a little bit differently, right? So you have to take all of these little factors in mind. And most of your answers are probably here. They're probably in your phone. Go through your text messages. And if your text message voices are too similar, you need more friends. I mean, that's just the truth.
That's fair.
You need different friends. And I think that's one of the best things that we as creatives, and honestly, we as people, need to do more of, and just find more people who are different than us, especially creatives. And this is not to be political, because that's not really what we do here, but just to be honest, if we have interactions as creatives with people who are different than us, that gives us a window into different viewpoints, mindsets, language, culture, history, and all of these things will do nothing but make our writing better. We'll have different perspectives that we can take a firsthand or direct secondhand reference to. And push comes to shove, you have a person to say, hey, I want to write a character like this, a character similar to you. What would you say in this situation? I've had to do that when I write female voices. I've reached out to women I know whose personalities best match the character. And I'm like, hey, here's a situation, right? And actually, I remember one time I was working on a piece called The Debt. And the woman was very similar to my friend Jessica Beard. And so I called her. And I was like, hey, I wrote this scene out. And I wrote down the woman saying XYZ. She's very similar to you. How would you say that same sentence? What would be more natural for you to say? And then we kind of have like a little back and forth over language. And I'm like, okay, well, this works for the period. This works for the attitude. I need it to be a little more sassy. And then they give me a feedback. And then boom, there we go. I changed my dialogue based on what someone would more naturally say, because I had somebody I could just call up.
So you have like an alpha reader.
Sort of, more so a reference point. They more act like a reference point. So I have an idea of what a person would say in a situation based on people I know. But if I'm not 100% sure, or if I don't feel like I'm genuine enough in the voice, I'll just call somebody. If I needed to find someone who is, I don't know, queer of some, then I was like, hey, maybe they wouldn't say it like this. What would be a more accurate thing to say? Because I want my voices to be as genuine as possible.
Don't we all?
Which is why we should go outside and find people that don't look like us and don't act like us and don't live like us and befriend them. You'll learn a lot.
So
people are fascinating.
And I love that we get to explore that, interactions with those people. And yeah, you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So how do you write scenes that feel cinematic while still reading well on the page? Like, is there, like, do you have the movie playing in your head when you write? Or
yeah, I used to joke that there was like two trains of thought in my brain. One train would play the scene out and the other train would write.
Oh,
so I would play it right in one train of thought and then utilize the other train of thought to write down what I'm seeing. I try to take note of, like in filmmaking, one of the things that's really important to take into consideration is B-roll. like secondary shots. Like person walks through the door into the kitchen, or like there's a door right here to the outside. So Dewan gets up and walks outside. Okay, that's the line on the page in a screenplay. But if I want to do that like in a novel or in a narrative short story or whatever, I'm getting up from my chair, describe the chair. I'm moving around my desk, describe the desk. What's on the floor on the way? Write that. Is there something holding me back from opening the door? I'll try to unlock the door. The lock won't jam. He jiggles. He turns it. He looks for a key. He realizes the door is already unlocked and he's just weird. The door's stuck. He pulls on it. That's
okay. So you do something that I also experiment with. We build the world and do our descriptions based on how our characters interact with the setting.
Yes, because that is how we perceive the world.
Yes.
If you've never done the gorilla test, it's so much fun. I love the gorilla test. It's great. So the gorilla test is it's this online test as a video, and I'm going to spoil it, so I'm going to screw it up for everybody. You're welcome. Basically, it's a bunch of kids in front of like an elevator or whatever, and there's some wearing like black shirts and some wearing white shirts. And the question that you're asked before you watch the video is, how many times do the kids in like the white shirt pass the basketball, right? And they're like in a small little circle, and they're just passing, all the kids are just passing the basketball. So your job is to watch this circle and count how many times the kids in the white t-shirt pass the ball. Simple, right? Okay. So you watch it, right? And you're like, you got a number like 15, 16, 17, whatever. So then the end of the video is like, how many times do the kids in the white shirt pass the basketball, right? Then it asks you, did you see the gorilla? And you're like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? It then rewinds the video and shows you that in the middle of this passing of the ball, a dude in a gorilla suit has walked out, stood in the dead center of these kids, done a little jig, and walked his little self out.
Oh.
And I've done this to people, and I've watched a good 50-50. Half the people I asked this question to, including my family, didn't see the gorilla at all. I forgot what the name of the book is. I have to go back and look at that. But there's a book, and I've read the book, and the point of the book was there was a study. And in the end, the study talks about, to kind of sum it up, about how we only notice what we're looking for, right? We only see what we're looking for. It's based on some case where a cop had actually walked past some police brutality that was taking place off to a corner. But since he was so focused on capturing his perpetrator, he didn't see anything. And they're like, how could you walk right past it and not see it, right? And it's kind of how when you're looking for something and you're searching for one particular thing and something goes wrong, they're like, how did you not see that spill right there? It's like, well, I was focused on this. It was right in front of you. You should have seen it. We've all said that. This is the science. The book actually goes to the science behind that. Point of all that was, I like to believe that that's how we perceive the world. And since it's how we perceive the world, that's how my character, particularly in first person, that's how my character is going to receive the world. So that's what a first person writer should be writing about. What is immediately in our focus? Do we hear something off to the side? Probably not if we're focused directly on something. So unless we need the reader to know about that thing that we hear in the side without the character reacting to it, I mean, otherwise the characters react to it. These kind of things is just experience the world as we are experiencing it and write it accordingly. Because then you are in place of the character. And I'm a first person writer most of the time. And that's just that's how I see the world. So that's how I write the world.
So Copper Wheat Collection, and I'm deviating from my questions a little bit. You write in second person.
Yes, that was interesting. That was fun.
Was that an experiment, or especially going into the dream world, or?
So the reason, okay, so if you get the Copperweight collection, there are 5 total stories. The first 2 are in second person, which is a weird place to write. On the off chance someone doesn't know what we're talking about, I walked to the store. That's first person. Dwan walked to the store and was thinking about how hungry he was. That's like third person limited. You know, Dwan walked to the store with Sako. Dwan was hungry. Sako was bored. The third person narrator knows everything that's going on. That's like omnipresent. Second person's weird because instead of saying, you know, I walked to the store, the second person is, you walked to the store. And it's telling you what the reader did. When I was given the commission to write the stories at first, my buddy David was David Copperweight, the namesake. He was DM for a D&D campaign. So these were stories he was going to tell to the people in his campaign. That's why they're named, because these are the people in his campaign who these stories were based for. So I was writing them as I pictured David having to deliver them. So since he was going to be talking to Katie, to Jacob, to Brian, to Greg, I wrote the stories, the first 2, as if the narrator is talking to them in these stories. Once I did that a couple of times, I mean, it was fine. You gotta get your tenses right, and it's weird. So I talked to David, and he's like, "You don't have to do it like that. It's pretty cool you did, but you don't have to." I'm like, "I don't have to." let me, you know, like the kids say, let me cook. I'm good. So then I start doing the third and fourth story. We're in first person because that's my home.
That is super interesting. Not even here. I'm at work. Hey, how's it going, hon? Hopefully you can listen to us while you work.
This is where someone would whistle, but I'm not going to whistle into the microphone.
So inspiration and challenges.
Okay.
What stories, i.e. films, books, games, etc., have deeply influenced your screenwriting?
I love all different horror, but interestingly enough, Quentin Tarantino, probably if I had to list an influence, like by name, Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino's writing is interesting because there's a lot of times he will deviate into like just unnecessary dialogue, which is kind of a direction we're kind of told not to go into, just unnecessary dialogue that gives nothing to the story. But I enjoy it. It kind of fits into the writing influence that I have, which is Douglas Adams. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is the most influential book I've ever read in my entire life. And I absolutely love dry British humor. I really do. And there's something about dry British humor that you have to focus on. Doesn't always land the right way. Not everyone grabs it. That in itself goes along with comedic influences like Mitch Hedberg. And a lot of people don't know about Mitch Hedberg's comedy, but Mitch Hedberg would tell like one-liner jokes or weird two-liners. One of the ones I can remember is like, I had a parrot. The parrot talked, but it didn't say I was hungry, so it died. And it takes you a second because you're like, okay. There was a joke where it was like, there's no such thing as a broken escalator. It just becomes stairs.
Oh, it's very Mitch Hedberg-y.
Yeah, those are Mitch Hedberg jokes. And so my comedy is a blend of like Mitch Hedberg stand-up and dry British humor. And then I like the stylistic writing of Quentin Tarantino. So I don't know if that translates well, but
So yes, those are stoner jokes.
They kind of are
Yeah.
stoner, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like even some of his jokes are like, I don't want to tell it myself, but the UPS guy is a drug dealer or something like that. Like it's something as simple as that. It's like I can't do Mitch Hedberg justice, but it's a funny guy. If you get to go back and watch it, like watch Mitch Hedberg stand up, it's hilarious because he had this anxiety and he wouldn't look up. So he had like his sunglasses and he kind of looked down all the time like this and tell his jokes. He had terrible anxiety. For a stand-up comic, that's terrible. But he managed to do it because he was good at it. And it was funny. And the best part about watching stand-up for Mitch was he delivers the joke, he delivers the punchline, there's a pause, and then the crowd laughs. Because it takes them a while to put all the pieces together and go, oh, God, okay, yeah, okay, that's funny now. And it takes them a second, but I love it. So so there's sometimes I write things and the joke doesn't land right away. That's not because I'm bad at comedy. That's intentional. That's intentional. Or I can just say that and tell you it's intentional because I'm bad at comedy. One or the other.
I disagree. I love your comedy. Let's see. How do you overcome writer's block or creative burnout?
That's kind of twofold. There's like kind of two different ways of dealing with that. One is to write something else. Number one way is just to write something else. Okay. Most writers I know don't focus on one project solely. Take a break. I know that seems to frustrate some writers, and not every writer's brain works well enough to do that. I understand. But if you can, just do something else. I have so many different types of projects that I work on, from the podcast stuff to the nonfiction stuff, like the Moon's Favorite Albums essays. That was a break. I wrote some screenplays, got them done, and I took a break to work those. Thank you very much. But yeah, like, so just write something else. If you don't have something else, make up something else to write. Just write something different. And then after a while, like something might trigger. You'll give yourself space to be creative and time for them to trigger. The other thing to consider is you don't have to necessarily write your story linearly.
Exactly.
So especially if you're stuck on this scene, then okay, especially if you have an outline. If you have an outline for all your stuff and you don't know how this is going to go, write something over here. And then the creative part, which will probably lead to another issue, is figure out how to make those two pieces work together with maybe an extra
transitions scene. Or
just figure out
an introduction of a character at a
just like a bonus point. Or like a bonus travel scene or something. Someone goes somewhere, someone left somewhere, someone fell asleep. I don't know, had a dream. I don't know. So they do something weird. In the end, you don't have to include it all. Just because you wrote it doesn't mean you have to include it. You
exactly. I think that is the kind of stuff that would go in your book Bible or your series Bible, because it kind of like designates your voice.
Yeah, and have a Bible.
Your writer voice,
like
your narrator voice.
This right here, if I can get it closed proper, I can drop some stuff in the meantime. So this binder is for Such Is Life. That's a project that I've been working on for so damn long. And inside these are notes for the next part that I'm writing. These are the completed printouts of the parts that come before it. But right here in the front
is the original.
Is the notebook. So papers, random notes, lots of paper clips, different sections, different thoughts. If you're trying to figure out how a scene will go, write different versions of it. See which ones work. That's why we edit. We edit to put stuff together later. And I think that's one of the, it sounds so pretentious when I say it like this, but that's kind of one more of the advanced thoughts that you think of when you get into writing and you take your writing more seriously. If you're just casually writing a story, you're writing it from beginning to end. We all have done it. But when you get really into it, you realize that you can go back from chapter 10 to chapter 3, rework something in chapter 3, add something extra bonus in chapters 5 and 7, and then go on to make chapter 10 the way you want to. We can do that. There's nothing stopping us. That's how that works. That's how that process works. And it's one of those things that once you figure it out, it's not that writer's block doesn't exist. It's just that writer's block isn't the burden we always think it is.
Well put. What's been your most challenging project so far, and how did you grow from it? Or are you in the process of growing because you are working on Such As Life? What can you tell us about Such As Life without like spoiling everything?
So let me try to answer all of those questions at once. The most challenging thing has been the long project, and the long project has been Such As Life. It was a short story that I wrote just to kind of get myself back into writing. Writing was my ticket out of depression, and because writing, the pen has never betrayed me. The pen has never betrayed me. So I started writing that short story series. I wrote a story out, and I'm like, this is kind of funny. Okay. And then I'm like, well, let me do it again. So I wrote a part 2, like a second part, like a continuation. And I'm like, all right, that's kind of silly. It's cool. And I had this idea for like 3 and 4. And then this is one of those things that writers say that people don't understand. The characters said something different. The characters didn't like what I said, what I planned. And so they wrote me in a completely different direction. And now
so your characters talk to you.
Oh yeah, easy. If it makes sense to them, in the end, when you start to write a character, no matter how thoroughly, their voice should exist in your head somewhere. And at some point, you should be reviewing with your character. It sounds psychotic, I know, but you should be reviewing with your character. Does this make sense for this person to do? And that's essentially the question we're asking. Does it make sense for, this character, Zach, to do X? Does it make sense for Daniel to do Y? Does it make sense for Venus to do Z? And if the answer is probably not really, then don't write it and take your character in a different direction, because you have the power to do that. In their world, you are God. You get to pick however the world is built and shapes. And anything you write goes. Just got to give it a good, if it's different than stereotypical, meaning like the way the world normally is, then yeah, explain it. Give it an explanation. It doesn't be right away, just eventually. And then you have that. And that's been the most challenging project, was because I'm balancing all these different characters. They're all dealing with all these different things, and none of the characters directly controlling things is my main character. My main character is just experiencing it all. As far as, talking about Such As Life, it's essentially a short story series following a young man named Zach. And he is just kind of going through life. Nothing is actually happening to him. He's just dealing with the stuff happening around him. In the first episode, the first 3 episodes are actually available on dwanlhearn.com. You can read them. Just go to writings and stories, and then there should be like an I, Roman numerals, and you just click on those and you can read them on the website.
They're on the website. So the website is featured down in the description.
It's myname.com. So Zach is at work and he's getting called to the back. His boss wants to talk to him. So there's a manager and then like the owner. The owner wants to talk to him.
Spoilers?
It's fine because it's available, and
Okay.
it's the catalyst event that triggers the process of everything else. So it's okay to talk about it. Somewhere in the course of the interaction that he eventually has with the owner, leads the owner to have like a psychotic episode. He completely snaps. He apparently has like this aversion for blood. He encounters blood, freaks out, gets into this giant melee at the store, triggers the melee in the store, and runs off. So now he's had like a break and he runs off. And the rest of the series follows essentially the aftermath of that.
That's the inciting incident.
That's the inciting incident. Is
the manager,
the fight, the
fight.
owner. Because there's a separate manager. That's Daniel. Daniel's like trying to keep things together as best he can. Poor bastard. But yeah, no, there's a lot of characters. There is actually a character named Mitch, and he is there.
As far as homage to the great Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah, because there's a Mitch Hedberg joke that he says, I want to see a forklift lift a crate of forks. It'd be so literal. It's lifting forks. That's the comedy of Mitch Hedberg. So there is a scene in episode 2 where someone is carrying a freight on a forklift, and they're like figuring out what he's carrying, and they realize it's a bunch of forks. They're trying to figure out like, that's so weird. Nah. Strange? No. And then there's a second, an extra voice going, literal. A forklift carrying forks is literal. And it turns out to be some new guy who just popped into this thing called Mitch. And then I'm like, cool. But then I'm like, well, now I have a new character named Mitch. Now I got to do something with this kid. So,
yeah.
So now Mitch is a character. And I have a few characters that just kind of showed up out of nowhere.
I know how that feels.
It's pretty fun. It's a challenge. That's why it's one of the most challenging. Because now you inadvertently and indirectly created these characters and you got to do something with them. You're like, I can't kill them off, but now I got to develop a new character, figure out a story for
them. Do you have intention of making them like a forefront character when you do that?
Zach is always going to be the main character, but they don't always have to be so secondary, or like they don't have to be like tertiary characters. They're not like third level characters. I created a character. I'll have like a bit in my head and I'll write the bit out as it plays out in the thing. And one of the characters I created was this woman named Janet, because I was watching Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh.
So I have a character named Janet just so I could do the damn it Janet bit. And so I'm like, well, great. Now I have a character named Janet, and Janet comes back. She's referenced in episode 7 or 8. After that, she shows up in 4. She's referenced in 7 or 8. And then she's a primary part of episode 9. And eventually I'll write these whole things out until it gets to a conclusion. The goal is to write all of these little stories out until all the stories are wrapped up, and then possibly a cliffhanger that would lead into like a secondary, either series or a second volume, like a jump point for a continuation. Because for me, these characters just exist in a world of their own. And since they exist in a world of their own, until they die, they are still there. They're still doing stuff. Life is still happening for them. And it's kind of my job to write that down.
It is our job as writers to
tell stories.
To tell stories and to write that shit down. So I'd love to pick your brain a little bit about industry, and you give some great advice.
I try.
What's one misconception new screenwriters have about breaking into the industry?
They're good.
Ooh.
That's the biggest misconception you'll have is that you're good, which just opens the door to allow yourself to suck. And that's new writers, that's new creatives. If you're filmmaking, your first piece will probably suck. If your first piece doesn't suck magically, your second piece probably will. Your first book might suck, your first story might suck, your first song might suck, your first piece of art might suck, and that is okay. I learned a lot from the criticisms I got from Tips. Tips was that first screenplay that I wrote. I gave it to a couple of friends of mine. One was an actor, one was a screenwriter. They're like, "Ooh, well, you wrote one. That's good. After that, let me tell you what you did right, and let me tell you what you did wrong." And there was a lot of wrong, and I continue to get a lot of wrongs when people look over my work. And the best piece of advice is to learn to take criticism. Most criticism is given in good faith, and if it's given in good faith, take it as such. Don't let that be your hindrance. Don't let that tell you to quit. The mission has to be yours. So you might get a hang up. You might have to stay at a station longer than you plan. You might have to go back and revisit something. You can read there's a bunch of books. I read Save the Cat and Screenwriting for Dummies. Not gonna lie, Screenwriting for Dummies, it's in that cabinet right there. Because they're reference books. And I look back at that reference book a lot because it's just simple formatting stuff. There's videos online. And whether it's screenwriting, novel writing, song making, filmmaking, there's going to be things that you do wrong. But to attach something to that just because it's wrong doesn't mean it's bad. I told my daughter once, when it comes about being creative, learn all the rules. Learn all the rules. And
So
then
you can
break them.
break them.
Then break them. And that's the most artistic thing I think I could ever tell anyone. Learn all the rules and break them.
How do you handle? So we've kind of gathered how you handle critique, right? But what do you do when it conflicts with your vision?
Ignore it.
Ooh.
There was a conversation I was having. Might have been with you or somebody else, where someone can critique what you do, how you do it, your voice, the tone, something. If that's what you want, that's what you want. Get your creative, because in the end, you're the artist, right? You're the artist, and everyone else is just support, right? Your alpha readers, your beta readers, your editors, the publishers, your best friend, they are support, right? But they are not the artist. You are the artist. If it's your song and this is a weird sound in the background, and you're like, oh yeah, I thought it added to the ambiance of the song and the music and the tone in the back. I'm like, ooh, it kind of hurts my ear. If you want it there, you can still put it there. Be mindful that the result might be people stop listening to your music because it hurts their ear. But if that's what you want, that's what you want. If you know, and it's now intentional, it's intentional. Do your thing. Because not everything is going to look the same to me as it does to you. Think about it. Think about the song that you hate the most, right?
Okay.
Just anyone who hears this, think of the song that you hate the most. Somebody wrote it, someone produced it, someone made it, they edited it, and they put it out. They wouldn't have done it if they thought it sucked. If they felt about how you felt about it, they wouldn't have put it out in the first place. No artist wants to put out bad art.
So Rebecca Black actually went back and redid the Friday song. And it doesn't suck as bad as the first one. Like she grew as an artist out of the Friday song, and I think she doesn't get enough credit for the growth that she's done.
And again,
oddly, and I bet a lot of it had to do with the internet backlashing against
sometimes
her.
criticism, and that's how you're taking criticism. If you put it out, because again, like I said, no artist intentionally puts out bad art. Right? They might put out art that's controversial. They might put out art that they want people to be upset over or mad about, but they're never going to put out something they honestly think is bad. But if you think about every song you don't like and think of it in that format, then you realize that a person's opinion is different than the artist. So the artist can listen to a bunch of opinions, but if it's still the song they want to put out, they're going to put it out. If it's still the story you want to write, put it out. If it's still the book with the whatever ending, put it out. If it's still the film that has that really weird scene where something crazy or controversial happens, put it out. I've watched some crazy movies that are odd.
Me too.
Irreversible. This is not a recommendation. Do not go watch Irreversible. I very rarely say that about a movie, and this is not a criticism on the artist or the writer. It is a tough movie to watch. There's a very, very graphic scene in there in the middle, and I'm just telling you that you're best off to avoid it. Irreversible is a French film that is done in reverse. Hence the name.
That explains a lot.
That
is French. Yeah.
It's French horror is a whole. That's an episode in its own right. That will happen, and it won't be Irreversible that we watch. It'll probably be Martyrs. Martyrs or High Tension, but the movie is done in reverse. So what you would otherwise in a typical film see in the at the end is how it starts, which is fine because then you're like, ooh, how did we get there, right? The following scene is what happened just before that. It's like, ooh, okay, so this is building towards what we just saw. Cool. And it all comes back towards this scene in the middle where there was this inciting incident, this very graphic inciting incident. We don't need to talk about it. You don't need to watch it. But now that you might be able to get past, if you can get past that scene, you might be able to get past the scene after that, which is what got that person to the incident point. But then everything else is like the beginning of the movie. Think about it like that. Like the ending has already happened. You've already seen it. So the end of the movie is that quiet lull part of the beginning where nothing is really happening and things are just kind of falling into place. And that's boring at the end. To me, it didn't work. Obviously, it worked for some people. It got out. It was on DVD. It's been released. I can see it. I know other people who have seen it. Others have watched it. It doesn't work for me. That rule break, I commend them for breaking such a crazy rule. Didn't work for me. Didn't land. Not for me. Somebody loves that movie. I question their sanity. But someone out there loves that movie. And I don't criticize anybody. It's just a matter that one that highlights that, yes, you can break all the rules, but not everything's going to work. And maybe they should have taken criticism more seriously. But at the same time, that's the opinion of not the artist. And I appreciate the fact the artist still did it.
Okay. I've got one question left for you. This is the last one. What advice do you wish someone had given you when you started screenwriting?
You're going to suck. I know
which is just doubling down on your
it is.
previous.
It's just I kind of, because it's one of those things, like, if you know you're a good narrative writer, and which I wouldn't call myself great, but I do okay. My short stories are entertaining in my view.
Mm-hmm.
To write and get into a new medium, it's starting over again. It's doing a new thing all over again, and you're new. You could put out 1,000 novels. Your screenplay is not going to necessarily translate the same way, so you're going to suck, and that's okay. To know that you're going to suck and that's okay is perfectly fine. That's really good, solid advice, I think.
In Adventure Time, there is Jake the dog, and Jake the dog once said, "You got to suck at something before you get good at it."
Yeah. Beyond that, I think that's for the most. Just this is more of a stylistic thing. Like, you're writing the script, you're not writing like the production script. So there's a lot of things that I want to do. Like, I'll see a scene and I want to tell you what kind of barn door wipe it's going to open the scene with or whatever, and they're like, hey, don't do that. Leave that up to the director. Leave that.
So you are writing for the person who is reading it.
Yeah. And
right.
Knowing your place in the process. That's it. Know your place in the process. It's slightly different when you are going to produce your own work. Like a Tarantino, that's kind of one of the reasons why Tarantino is like a bad influence, because Quentin Tarantino is usually the writer, director, producer of a Tarantino film. Very rarely are you going to see, a movie written by Quentin Tarantino, directed by Ari Aster, which I would love to see that movie. Produced by Jordan Peele. I don't know how that's going to work, but I would love to watch. I'm going to watch that movie.
I would watch that movie, yeah.
But my point is, Quentin Tarantino writes for his own directing style, and then he's going to produce it, so he knows how he wants it edited. He's doing it for himself. If you're an independent, then that's fine, because in the end, you're writing it for you. You're the person who needs to read it, and then you're the one who's going to be directing from it and producing from it. Probably if you're editing it, you're going to be editing from it. But if you're a part of the process, and I'm just,
if you have a team,
right, and I'm just the writer, I'm not the director, I'm not the producer, I'm not the editor, I'm not going to be in those rooms, then I need to do my part. And my part is to write the story. Let the director say, all right, so I want you to show this facial emotion and do this. Stand over here versus over there, because I want the light to come through to show that you're sad, and leave that to the director. That's not your job as a writer unless you're also the director. So know your place in the process. I think it's the best advice I could have been given. I
understand exactly what you're saying. Let me start over. There was a Letters and Light event back in the day called Script Frenzy, and I wrote a steampunk called Clockwork anthology for a bunch of artists, and so I know the strengths and weaknesses of every one of these artists. So each story in this anthology was written for that artist, right? So, like, I know what they suck at drawing, and maybe they want some extra exercise. I discuss this with them ahead of time. Or maybe they are really good with certain angles, right? Or architecture. So I'll talk about the architecture in the script. But for myself, I don't necessarily need details like that. I'm working on a zombie script right now for a graphic novel.
Yes, she is. It's a good one.
Contingency plan. And yay, Nick came back. And we're about to wrap up. But I'm writing with... So a lot of it was written right after reading Battle Royale, the manga, like in its entirety.
Right.
So I need to do one last revision to make sure I can draw what I've written. It's been 10 years, right, since I wrote it. So, or 20 years? Lord.
Yeah, don't do them. Once you get to a certain age, stop doing the math.
I need to stop doing the math.
It's just upsetting.
But my abilities, my drawing abilities, my writing abilities have improved in that time. And I need to go back in and revise one last time before I start drawing, because I think I have the skill set now to do this magnus opus graphic novel that will sum up my ability to draw, to illustrate.
And just know where you fall in that process. Like, you see where you are in the process of getting that from idea to print or from paper to film. And just knowing where you fall in that. If you have multiple steps, if you have multiple spots in that, that's cool. Like, it's all fine. It's just knowing that and being aware that if there are other people involved in the process, you have to take in consideration what they're going to add to it or take from it and move accordingly. Because you have to remember you're a cog in the machine. You're not the machine.
You are not the machine. Today, we talked to horror author Dwan L. Hearn and learned a bit about his thoughts about screenwriting in general. And I think we super got, as well as I feel like the family knows you at this point, and we've gotten a really good idea of your process and your inner workings regarding screenwriting.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot in there. So this is when I talk about the preview. What movie would you recommend that we watch on Monday?
Screenshots is too short. That was written by me. You guys can watch that on your own. It's available on YouTube. If you find the Howard Hills Entertainment YouTube page, you can find Screenshots. We're proud of that. It's got like 24,000 views on it. And we're
wow.
Not bad. For the little project we were trying to, for the little project that was never supposed to see the light of day, it did pretty good. I don't know. I don't know what would be a good me movie to watch.
I have some recommendations.
I'm listening. Let's go.
Scream 3 came to mind.
Okay.
In the sense that it kind of uses both structure and discovery writing. I feel like when they put that movie together. So
it's a very complex movie.
It's a very complex movie.
It's a great series. Scream is my favorite horror series, so I'm not against that. What else you got?
I put Misery because it was a book to TV or to movie transition, so somebody had to screenwrite that.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, I recommended an episode of Marianne. It is a French horror Netflix show. about an author who is being tortured by her character, who happens to be a demon witch.
That's interesting. I would take out Misery, and it'd be a toss-up between Scream 3 and Marianne.
Okay.
Scream 3 is a movie that I know very well. Marianne's a movie I've never seen. So.
Or a show.
Or a show. So. Well, okay. So if it's going to be a show, then I would say Scream
I would
3.
pick an episode. Pick an episode.
How about this? Let's do officially Scream 3, because I like things that have beginnings and ends. We can talk about it in its completeness.
Okay.
But I'm not against doing something bonusy.
Oh.
With Marianne. Let those wheels spin. Yeah, and let's see if we can do like a bonus, I don't know, 2 or 3-parter about the season.
Yes, it is a great series. It's one of my favorites.
So how many episodes are there? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a production meeting for Sako.
A production meeting, Netflix. I have to sign back in.
Cue Jeopardy theme. It's easier if you guys just hum it at home.
I don't want to play games.
I never want to play games. I don't know why Netflix has games. I know exactly why Netflix has games. To keep people on Netflix.
All right, Marianne. I would like to. It's auto playing, which is unfair. It is 8 episodes.
Oh yeah, we can do a 3-parter on that.
I can.
We'll work the logistics out.
And we'll work out some logistics.
And then how about this? We'll do Scream 3 for our official pick.
Okay. Where can we watch that? Do you know?
I'll have to look into that.
I'm looking into it now.
I have it on DVD, so I can watch it whenever. But I know they're streaming.
It's on Max.
Do you not have Max?
I don't.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Push come to shove, I think we should do a separate 3-parter for Marianne. If it's such a good series, if everyone's recommending it, we'll do like a special 3-part thing where we talk about. We'll break up the episodes however they best fall, and we'll do that. Why not? Extra content for Sako on the Moon.
And I've always wanted to really analyze Marianne and why it's so scary and why it works so well.
So that's the kind of thing, and those are the kind of reasons why you wouldn't want to just give it a 1-hour talk. If you want to really analyze it, let's take some time and let's analyze the series. Let's
okay.
So yes, we'll work out some details and some logistics, and if you want, we can do a different Scream if a different Scream is more accessible to you.
Okay.
Like I said, I have them all on DVD. I might be able to pull the DVD player out, and we might be able to Discord that like we did last time.
Cool.
So we'll figure it out. Catch us on Monday, and
catch us on Monday,
and then we'll see how we figure that out.
Yeah. And on Friday, which is a week from now, I would like to talk about when the bad guy wins in horror fiction.
I love when the bad guy wins.
And maybe I will have fewer notes and we can have, I don't know. I'll figure something out for that show.
You know what I'll do? I'll just sit here and talk.
Yes, you will. Yeah, because you do that. All right. So, where I can be found on the internet. I mostly hang out on Facebook and Bluesky, but if you Google Sako or Sako to Me or Cass Voigt, you will find all of my stuff. That's my art, my dancing, my authordom. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Moon, where can folks find you on the internet and otherwise?
At home. No, I am typically found at DewanLHearn.com. And at DewanLHearn.com, there's a contact page. You can find my email address, and my handle most everywhere is DLHearnWrites. That's me on Facebook. That's my author page on Facebook, my Instagram, my Bluesky. You should definitely find me on Bluesky because I am most active on Bluesky. All my wrestling fans, all my wrestling friends, we can all discuss nearly every wrestling show live as it happens, including tonight for SmackDown. I will be on there along with a whole slew of people. It totally changes the way you watch a wrestling program when you're watching it with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Then on Thursdays, I have Thursday night movie commentary, where I watch a movie and I just do commentary as I'm watching it. Last night I did The Perfection. I had asked for suggestions because this is Pride Month. Happy Pride Month. I hope that every homophobe out there is having a terrible time. And so I asked for some suggestions, and there's a relationship in the main characters of The Perfection. It's available on Netflix, and I did live commentary during that. It's a good movie. The ending's a little off, but good movie, even still. I don't know what movie I'm doing. I think next week. I have my paper here. If I can find it, I might be doing Tu Wong Fu next Thursday.
Oh, wow.
It has been decades since I've seen Tu Wong Fu. So to watch Tu Wong Fu with essentially brand new eyes will be interesting. And I think on my list, if I can find it, I'm going to do The Birdcage. I would love to do The Birdcage.
You're doing just a bunch of... Is this for Pride?
It is for Pride. These are suggestions I had for Pride. I'm like, you know what? I did the same thing for Black History Month. I think that I think there's a lot that mirrors the Black experience with the queer experience. And so I think it deserves voice, and these movies might get pushed under the rug or ignored because of their content. And I'm like, well, fuck them. Let's watch them. You know, I don't see a problem with a straight Black man watching a bunch of queer films.
I see no problem with
Bring
that.
new perspective to it. You know, if there's something I don't get, hopefully there's people on Bluesky who can help answer questions for me that I'll probably ask during commentary. And that's why doing the Thursday night movie commentary is so much fun.
Scream 6?
Love Scream 6.
Let's analyze that.
I just watched Scream 6. I'll love to watch it again.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, no, trust me. If it's a Scream movie, I will watch it again.
Okay.
I can literally have just finished it, and then you can come to me and say, hey, can we watch this movie? I'm like, the one I just finished? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay.
I will watch it this weekend, probably today, because I'm in a movie watchy sort of mood. And thanks for sticking it out to the end, guys. You are family. We do this for you. And if you like this podcast, please rate us or like us or follow or subscribe or whatever.
There's a button around us that should probably...
There's a button that you can push. You can contact us at sakoandthemoonpodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you guys next week. Mm-hmm.